So I've barely touched my Hunter the past couple seasons because I was kind of let down by Strand Hunters until now. I know there have been some good builds out there, but I haven't really had fun playing them. The two newest aspects make Strand Hunter my favorite way to play Strand across all classes, which is really saying something because I do really love Strand Titan. As you saw in the thumbnail, I'm calling this build the Tangle Master because that is what you will be once you get this down. I've used this in Master Lost sectors where I'm 20 power levels under, very strong there. I've used it in Grandmasters too, but it also works in just about any area where there is good ad density. That's where this really specializes. And as you can see from this gameplay, you will be extremely mobile while also being extremely tanky. And to make it even better, you will be an ad clearing machine. When using this playstyle correctly, you'll have constant woven mail, grapple charges, and supercharged tangles that will do insane damage for you. So intro out of the way, let's first cover how we should best set up our subclass. Silk Strike is obviously the only super ability we have on Strand Hunter, which is a solid super that specializes in ad clear if you want it to. It can also do a lot of damage to bosses, so it's kind of a jack of all trades. For the class ability, like normal with Hunter, I'm going to be going with Gambler's Dodge because we will want to have our Threaded Spike melee ability up as often as possible. All we have to do is dodge near an enemy and we get our melee fully refunded. It's great. And speaking of this Threaded Spike melee, this thing is really cool. Once you throw it at an enemy, it will track down other enemies before returning back to you. And the more enemies you hit, the more melee energy you will get refunded. And you can also repress your melee button as it flies back to you to get even more melee energy back. Not sure how many people know that. For our grenade, we will be going Grapple. Not only is Grapple obviously helpful with mobility, but it will do other stuff for us as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I do want to mention though, really quick, that the Grapple plus melee combo is very powerful. You should be using it when you can. It does a lot of AoE damage, and it will also synergize with the build since it technically counts as a powered melee kill, which will be important a little bit later on. Moving on to our aspects, we are going to go with the Threaded Spectre and Whirling Maelstrom. Starting with the Threaded Spectre, it's just a really cool ability. It first states that activating your class ability leaves behind a decoy woven from strand matter that draws the attention of nearby combatants. This alone is really cool since it can draw fire away from you and toward your decoy. But the second part is where it gets even more powerful. Once this decoy takes enough damage, it will detonate and also spawn in threadlings that will track down enemies and do even more damage for you. This has saved me a lot of times, and now I really feel like I can't play Strand Hunter without this ability. What's really cool here too is that you can shoot it yourself to detonate it and have those strand threadlings do some work for you. I will say for this, you'll want to learn to dodge in strategic spots to get the most out of this ability though. The closer you are to enemies when dodging, the more you're going to get out of it. As for our second aspect, this is the real bread and butter of the build, Whirling Maelstrom. This aspect states that destroying a tangle will weave a violent, writhing mass of strand fibers. The strand mass seeks out and damages targets, emitting unraveling projectiles when it defeats them. And with how easy it is to spawn in Tangles right now, this aspect is an absolute must on Strand Hunter. Shooting at a tangle in the middle of a group of enemies is really satisfying to watch, tons of damage numbers pop up, and it really allows you to hang back in tougher content like Grandmaster Nightfalls to safely deal damage while you're in cover. But let's say a tangle is just hanging out where there aren't any enemies nearby. Thankfully, you can just pick it up and toss it wherever you want, and it's going to do the same exact thing as if you were to shoot it. What's really cool about this though is that obviously it does a lot of damage to every enemy nearby, but when they do kill an enemy, those unraveling projectiles will go find other enemies which will unravel them, making them take more strand damage, as you can see from this captain right here. He's just getting absolutely obliterated. And once you get the feel of this build, you really can have that Whirling Maelstrom tangle up almost all the time. And as you've seen from the gameplay, your Whirling Maelstroms can create more tangles, so it's just kind of an endless loop of tangle madness. The only time you won't have one is if your tangle is on cooldown, which we do kind of have a solution for that a little bit later. Next, let's move on to the fragments. I decided to go with Thread of Continuity, Generation, Propagation, and Isolation. Continuity is going to help the unravel effect from our tangles last a little bit longer, as well as the sever effect that we get from Thread of Isolation. And if you don't know, sever is basically a 30% damage reduction that enemies do to you. So all enemies do way less damage as long as they're severed. If you want to, you can swap out continuity for Thread of Warding, which will give you woven mail anytime you pick up an orb. But I will say our exotic armor is going to handle the woven mail for us for the most part. You don't really need Thread of Warding, but if you feel like you're just not getting enough woven mail, then you can use it if you want to. Thread of Generation is the key here for getting constant grapple energy. Just deal damage and you get grenade energy refunded. And yes, Whirling Maelstrom Tangle damage does count for this, so you really can get your grenade back very quickly. Thread of Propagation will grant Unraveling Rounds to strand weapons when we get a powered melee kill. Unraveling Rounds are basically a nice free upgrade to our strand weapons, so why not use it, right? The only bummer here is that you have to use your Threaded Spike. Unfortunately, the grapple melee for some reason just doesn't work. It does not synergize in this specific instance for some reason. I don't know why. Alright, subclass is set up now. Let's talk about our exotic armor, which we will be using the Cyrtarachne's Facade. I think this is the best option for this specific build right now because of how easy it makes it to get woven mail. We just grapple and boom, 10 seconds of woven mail. It's that easy. And remember, we will have our grapple up almost all the time with how many things are helping feed our grenade energy. And what's cool here too is that grappling onto a Tangle is completely free. It doesn't waste any of your grenade energy. And yeah, this also gives us some flinch resistance, which we really don't care about in PvE, but it's nice to have. And that's it for the exotic, nice and simple. Let's move on to some weapons. We really have two options here that are both equally good. It just depends on what the activity is calling for. I feel that Quicksilver Storm and the Navigator are the two best exotic weapon choices for us as they synergize beautifully with this build. Quicksilver Storm is a primary ammo workhorse that can also create on-command tangles for us by using that alternate fire grenade. And it also deals with barrier champions this season as long as you have that perk unlocked. Quicksilver is my favorite weapon in the game. I really enjoy using it, but the Navigator will hit a bit harder as it is a special ammo weapon, and it gives woven mail just by shooting an ally or an enemy, and it severs enemies, making them deal 30% less damage, and it can create a grapple point that we can use to get free woven mail without having to use a grapple charge. And because we are in Season 22, we have access to the artifact perk Thanatonic Tangles, which can randomly create tangles just by getting kills. Yeah, Navigator is cracked. There's no way around it. And don't worry if you don't have the Navigator, if you haven't had it drop yet, just join up on Discord. We teach Ghosts of the Deep all the time. We can help you get it. And if you don't have either of these weapons, that's okay. Just use any strand weapon as your primary. This build is still going to be very powerful. For your energy weapon, it honestly does not matter too much. Grab literally whatever you want here. You're hardly ever going to use it. But my favorite weapon in the heavy slot is Circular Logic, the Strand LMG. It's great for those times when your Navigator might be out of ammo, or maybe you just need to deal more damage to a champion or a boss. It's a good weapon. And to help push this build to the limit, let's get our armor mods in order. For the helmet, double hands-on for tons of super energy from melee kills, and a harmonic siphon also to help our strand weapons generate orbs of power. For the gloves, run double impact induction for even more grapple energy when we get melee kills. And yes, this will work with that grapple melee combo, which is also very strong, like I mentioned. And why not throw on a heavy-handed mod if you have room for it to get an orb from melee kills? Nothing too exciting about the chest armor, just double up on whatever resist mods you need and maybe use a charged up to get one extra armor charge capacity. For boots, you'll want to run Better Already to help heal up from the orbs that you're generating and picking up, and double strand siphon to give you 17% additional strand weapon damage when armor charged. And lastly, for your cloak, use double bomber to refund grapple ammo when dodging, and Reaper to generate another orb when getting a weapon kill after dodging. So there is quite a bit of synergy here. Again, so many abilities feed into each other. You're almost always charging something by using literally any ability and getting kills. Just play and you're going to charge everything. And also, if you're watching this in Season 22, we might as well take advantage of some artifact perks that are active right now. And if you're outside of Season 2, don't worry, the build is still crazy good. But yeah, I'm not going to explain each one of these perks in detail. They're very self-explanatory, but you're going to want Thanatonic Tangles, Communal Pickups, Monochromatic Maestro, and Frenzied Stacks. These will make this build even more powerful, easier to generate tangles, all that stuff. And that is it for the Tangle Master Hunter. It is the most fun build in the game right now, in my opinion, because of how unique and powerful it is. You've got tons of woven mail, supercharged tangles, threadlings, grappling, beefed up strand weapons, and basically easy access to every strand verb. Yeah, it's just insane. You have to give this a try. I guarantee you that you won't want to play any other version of Hunter after this. Well, that is it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the Discord or in the next video. And just as a bonus, if you want it, this is a fashion that I have for my hunter, so feel free to copy it.